Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Generally Misunderstood podcast produced by Morning Cup Productions. Very excited for today's episode with an old buddy of mine, Tanner Pare. Tanner Pare and I played in a band together, which was initially we were called the Kents, and then in the last year I was in the band, we changed our name to Heaps. But we had many years playing with each other. He was drummer, I was bassist. We were pretty tight in the rhythm section, and many years of trying to make a go at it in the music industry. And so I thought it'd be really interesting to have him on to talk about what it takes to make it in the industry, or the barriers that people don't necessarily know exist. It's one of the most common conversations I have with people as they ask about my experience with the band and with music. What it was like, what we could have done differently, and everything. So I thought it would be interesting to have a conversation kind of talking about the misunderstandings that exist within being a successful musician and helping people better understand what it takes to become a professional musician, which is something that Tanner and I both never fully accomplished. We're never fully professional, able to live off of music solely, but we gave a good crack at it. And so, if nothing else, it was a good conversation for me to have as well, just to work out my own processing with our experience and with what happened. So we talked about a lot of bands that we knew, that we saw were successful, and bands that we think that should be more successful than they currently are. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoy this podcast with my beautiful friend, Tanner Pare. And just one other note as well. I forgot my microphone at home, my second microphone at home for this interview, so I used a much cheaper alternative, and I didn't have a stand for it, so it was very silly, and I wasn't checking the audio, but my mic has a lot of sounds as I'm holding it and moving it around, and then my P's are just popping off the charts. So apologize for that. Bear with me. I've limited them a little bit into as what I could, but warning, that is not the greatest audio. There might be some annoyances to your ears, so maybe turn the treble down in your car if you're listening there, or maybe it doesn't bother you that much. Anyways, please enjoy my conversation with Tanner Pare. I generally have two stands, except I totaled this one, so I can't screw any mic clip onto it anymore.
Oh, shit.
And then I generally have not an SM57. Generally I have an SM58, but I don't know where it is. And above that I have like a warm audio.
I saw that in the other one.
Yeah. Whatever, 47 Junior, whatever. No idea where it is.
Dang. Somewhere.
It could be anywhere in here.
Yeah.
Or it could be anywhere at my home. Or it could be anywhere in my car. It could be anywhere. So.
Dang.
Yeah.
Hopefully you find them.
Yeah. That's a nice mic. I'd like to have it, and I'd like to just not be holding a nice little SM57 here. But thanks for doing the coming on the pod. Guest number 2.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, guest number 2 who's silly enough to accept my invitation.
Always.
Can you publicly acknowledge who bought you that coffee?
Luke, you bought me this coffee.
I bought you this coffee.
It was good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, the money could have gone towards my children's shelter or clothing or food.
Luke bought me the coffee.
Yeah.
I asked him to make me one.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, because you thought we were going to film at my home.
Didn't know you had this sweet office.
Didn't know I had. It's a sweet 8x10 office.
Does the job.
Does the job. Does it well. Does it well. But yeah.
That's nice.
That's my business card.
It's a nice card.
Yeah. Yeah, I went for the rounded corners, so it doesn't get too sharp on the fingers, and
Stands out in the wallet.
Yeah, the only thing is I find that this one it wears down quick or whatever, so when I have a few in my pocket, they look really old and dirty.
Oh,
and
okay.
There have been a few that I've handed out, and it looks like I grabbed it from the bottom of my car or whatever, and it's been stamped on or whatever. But so I'll go for a higher quality next time. But
I think it looks really good.
yeah. Well, how about we start with explaining how we know each other. Do you remember the first time we ever saw each other or were in the same room?
Yes. I was booking. There was a time where I was booking lots of shows in Peterborough, and maybe it was like I was putting on a fundraiser.
It was the Fill the Spill.
To help fix the Spill's air conditioning in Peterborough. And the Kents were my big headliner. So they came and played. They showed up shortly before they had to play, and they left promptly after. They were watching Straight Outta Compton at the movie theaters.
It was my last night before I had to go back to school.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever knew that.
Yeah, I was going back to it was like a last shebang before I went to university in Chicago. So it was like I won't see them until Christmas.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah. but it did look like we just showed up for our set and then we just left right after.
Promptly
Didn't talk
after.
to anybody. Yeah.
I thought they were all kind of rude guys. Yeah. I think that was like 2014, 2015.
I think it would have been
2015
because I graduated 2016.
Yeah, it was definitely 2015.
Yeah, because then it was only a few months later, and then
So I joined the
it
band.
was like February, March that you joined.
Yeah.
You became part of the
Rude Boys Club.
Part of the Rude Boys. Yeah, and you thought specifically that I looked.
I didn't want to say that. Like, I know we've talked about that, but I didn't know if I should say that on here. Yeah, I thought that Luke was a rude guy. I don't know why. I don't remember why particularly.
It's happened consistently to me. Whereas, like, I don't know if you remember, like, there in the first couple of years when we were playing shows as well, like, I specifically had a few certain people and a few certain bands that immediately, like, I felt just didn't like me at all. One guy specifically, I know that didn't like me. But then, like, so I had this, like, great insecurity around that, like, I think I look like, and especially then, I had, like, a fashion, which was, like, I'd just come from playing basketball in Chicago, so I think I had a little bit of, like, a...
Slicked back hair.
Yeah, a little bit more of, like, I had, like, a fade and like, you know, like...
Nothing wrong with fades, but I know what you mean.
No, but yeah, I had a really, like kind of jock look or whatever. I was coming back and I'd wear Jordans, and I think I looked like that jock from high school that everyone didn't like.
For sure.
And then so I found once I started to change my style that that I had less run-ins with people, or that, like, there was less immediate discomfort with me being in a music venue.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Like, not from me personally, but just from seeing that firsthand.
Yeah. As soon as I started, like, thrifting clothes a little bit more, or wearing a little bit more like kind of musician tailored stuff, and left the basketball stuff.
It was always black leather jacket. You had a black leather jacket.
I did start with
black jeans, Jordans, slicked back hair. It was a cool guy move.
Yeah.
I know.
It didn't do me any favors.
No.
And I have the same insecurity now, so I carry that insecurity with me. That, like, people are looking at me as this like, kind of dink or whatever or kind of thing. And I think generally with my style I've toned it back, but then I have this great insecurity about this hat I wear all the time now.
I think it looks good.
Yeah, I think it looks good as well, but I'm worried now that this is that separating marker from somebody feeling like they can approach me, or somebody thinking that I'm a jerk or whatever, or that I'm like, or that or that I'm too arrogant, that I think so highly of myself, and that they immediately then see me and don't like me.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But I think it looks good.
Yeah, I think it looks good, and I wear it and I own it, but I still, like, because I love connecting with people, and I don't like when somebody doesn't like me. Like, I don't handle that.
I have a hard time with that. So.
Yeah, and so this so I wear this hat like every day now, because I'm pretty sure I'm balding. So I wear it.
Fair.
But then I come to peace, like, if somebody doesn't like me because of the way I look, it is what it is.
Whatever.
I like the hat.
Screw them. I like the hat too.
Yeah, thank you. So, yes, so that brings us to, we were in a band together. From 2016 to 2020, we went by the name The Kents. And then from 2020 onwards, we went by Heaps.
Yeah.
I left in October 2020, I believe.
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you guys have carried on gently.
And we've come back full circle for the most recent shows.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The most recent shows we played all the way back in October, 8 months ago now or whatever.
We're all doing it.
We're all doing it.
Lots of
Nate
fun.
too, which
Nate
was
too.
the original drummer before you.
Full circle.
Full
Double
circle.
full circle.
Yeah. Just got to get Colton managing us again, and then we'll be we'll be right back. Bring everyone back in the fold. Get that booking agent back.
Yeah. Rob. Yeah. It's been a long time. That's freaking crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy that it's 2023 now.
Yeah.
And it's been more than 7 years since we've had started being in a band together.
Since we started hanging out every day.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Because when we were in the band, we were really trying to make a go at it.
We would practice 2 days a week.
Yeah.
It was never days that we had shows either. It was always Monday, Tuesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday. So when we had shows, it was just on top of.
Yeah, we try and put in banking hours, so we do 9 to 5s at whatever house or studio we were practicing or recording at. And then if there were shows, that would be on top of that. And then otherwise, we were working other jobs 0 to 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Kind of thing to pay rent. Because our goal with music was always to make it a full-time job in some sense. We never quite got there, but that brings me to introducing what we're here to kind of talk about in some sense is I think it's been interesting being in a post-band world and talking to people about the band experience, especially people who know about the band.
Yeah.
And how little understanding there is around what success looks like or how success is measured. So I think that's an interesting place to start this conversation. Then I think we'll go into looking at bands who were quote unquote successful afterwards. But how would you define being a successful musician?
For me personally, I feel like I never got to a place of being successful at it, per se. My point of success would have been just doing that, a point where I'm comfortable doing what I love to do, making a comfortable living, doing what I love to do without trying to make it work all the time. And I think that, in my eyes, is the point of success, where if you can do the thing you love to make a living, to get by. You don't need to be rich, but if you can do it comfortably.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people will see that differently in both ways. Success is selling out stadiums, but also success is being able to just play music and stuff.
Yeah.
But at least for me, it was definitely getting to that point of just doing that.
I think that's how we defined success among the four of us.
For sure.
Was that's what we were pushing for, was we want to make this our full-time gig. We want to write, tour, record full-time. And that was the goal. I think there's an interesting point where when we were a few years in and working towards that place where I realized I got two kind of maybe diverging, I was just seeing a little crossroads with desires that I had, where one end was I want to be a full-time successful musician, and the other hand was I'd like to have a family,
right,
too, and be a homeowner and everything. And I realized that there's a significant population of musicians and bands that we were looking up to and working to be like them in some sense. And I realized, even with the success, they're doing it full time, but they're still renting one bed. They're in their 30s and renting one bedroom apartments.
Totally.
They're not homeowners. They don't have families. They don't have kids.
Yep.
And then even seeing examples of other bands where they did have kids, but they were still like kind of 10 years in and continually reinvesting whatever money they made in the band into the band and still working outside of the outside to supplement for their lives
Right.
in some sense.
Unless you're smart about it, like
Yeah.
investing in property or something with the money you make early on.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's like in my head there's like echelons of success that I see in some sense. I think that there's like a world of success which I have come to appreciate people more, and that they just do music for the joy of it. Like I see people who they have full-time jobs yet they continue to do it and they just enjoy it.
Right.
And that's something that I think that's like a joy that I become jealous of in some sense because I wasn't able to do that. And I don't know if I could be able to do that.
Totally.
Then there is a level of like, okay, I'm breaking even in some sense. Like I'm paying my rent and I'm paying all my groceries and bills and everything, and I'm able to do it and do this full time.
Yeah.
Then there's like the echelon where it's like, okay, like we're pretty stable and we're all able to own homes in some sense. And I feel like the only like band in our vision I see that have done that has been like Arkel's level. Almost not to name
Yeah.
drop like
No,
like
no.
I think there could be bands below that have gotten like sustainable, but like I feel like you have to be at this kind of wild level of success. Not that the Arkells is wild, but they play arenas across
Arenas.
Canada.
Yeah. Also, like maybe Strumbellas too.
Yeah,
I think they all own homes.
Yeah, they
For
do.
the most part.
They do. Which Strumbellas we'll get into them, is a wild level of success.
Yeah.
Like, you go gold in Italy and
Yeah.
and
Double platinum or something in the States.
How many commercials have I and TikTok trends have I seen? Their song.
Yeah.
Their song. Like that was a huge song.
And
So
still is.
Yeah, so it's like home ownership comes almost with like a huge level of success like that. It
Really
seems.
that next level. Like you have to be up there.
Yeah.
You can't, even if you're doing it full time.
Like your tours have to be like multi-thousand person shows.
Yeah.
I'll acknowledge as well, we're talking in some silly speculative terms, whereas we've never experienced that. We haven't done a first-hand knowledge at like,
No,
but
definitely
like,
not.
yeah, I realized that early on. Like a lot of the bands that we were looking up to, I was like, oh yeah, they're still this, they're able to pay for their 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, and they're not. None of them have kids or like have like a like it's still at that point. A lot of it's still a grind too, because the majority of money comes from touring,
Right.
which is 24/7 on the road and away from home and whatnot. But yeah, I'd concur with like success was kind of like for us was, can we make this a full time
That was always the goal.
job? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, definitely always the goal.
yeah. So who are some bands that we kind of like came up with in some sense that achieved what we didn't achieve, or that got to that level of like quote unquote success?
The most immediate one would be Cleopatra for sure. I feel like there was 2 years where I was booking lots of shows, and they were always the first band to play. I always put them on shows, and they were always the first band to play. And then out of nowhere, they didn't want to play the shows anymore because they were doing good things. Which is awesome.
Yeah, because they used to open for us.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, whenever we'd play Peterborough, it's like, let's get the Cleo guys, and like pop them on, and then we'd have like a 3 or 4 band bill.
Yeah,
we'd play last, and they'd play first. Yeah.
I don't think there was ever a point in between like them becoming successful and them playing first, at least for us, like with playing music with us.
Yeah, they had such a fast transition to
the last show we played with them was opening for them at Danforth Music Hall, and I think prior to that, the last show I played with them was them first to 4 at the Red Dog.
I think the last one was Head of the Trent.
Oh yeah, but they were first ahead of the Trent.
Yeah.
Or second or something.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know who Cleopatra is 2 beautiful fellas, Luke Runtz and Ian Fraser, and they both they're a duo group who grew up in Cobourg, Ontario, and
Went to
then
elementary
were
school
kind
together?
of went to elementary. Yeah, they got like pictures from kindergarten, best friends for life. And then when they were in high school and kind of get into post high school, Peterborough had.
You have a fluff.
Oh,
It
great.
just appears.
I don't
It's
know
gone.
if it's
It's gone.
yeah,
I just
that's
noticed
from
it.
my blanket.
Okay, you're good.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
No worries,
I had
thanks.
to-
I'd prefer you to bring that up.
Okay, good.
But they were kind of they're Cobourg, but really came to Peterborough as
Peterborough
a
was
music
where they were
home.
playing a lot at first, for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, because the Spill was open and they played that all the time, and then they just developed some. They're good guys, and we just developed a lot of friendships in Peterborough, and so always bring them on shows and
Very good people.
Yeah, so
So
they're
just keen to play.
yeah, so there must have been so we started playing in 2016, and
I feel like they came around like late 2016, early
Right.
2017 maybe. They put out sometime around 2016, definitely. They put out a
Yeah.
cover of X's and O's on YouTube, and that's
how you became
I
aware of them?
where I first started them.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some friends of mine shared it with me.
yeah, and then was it a couple years where they were really honing in there, like they were just playing and playing and grinding.
Definitely.
And then when did Hometown come out? Was that
November 2017, I think.
November 2017,
I think it was November 2017.
which was which was like our peak.
Yeah. Maybe I feel like maybe they were around before us then, or like early 2016 at least, because they were definitely grinding for a couple of years before that song came out.
Yeah, I feel like we played with them in the summer 2016 in that
Yeah,
first summer.
that makes sense.
And then played with them through 2017. When did we do the Big Shiny 90s night?
That was in 2017.
Was in 2017. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, basically, they're playing and grinding out locally, and they had a cover out, and they had like a song or two out at that
Yeah,
point.
like a small EP, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, small EP. But then they went into studio
With Anton.
with Anton to Lost and produced an initial EP, and they released a song called Hometown.
I think November 2017.
November 2017. And Hometown blew up for them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And,
Spotify.
yeah, in no uncertain terms. And I think you know the story better than I do of how that kind of
From my understanding, I could be wrong about this. I don't know if I've heard this directly from Luke or Ian, but from my understanding,
let's query with everything we're about to talk about with every band's like how they approach this guest is from our
distant
distant, yeah. And so we're not going to claim that this is 100% the truth. This is based on our observations. This is based on things that we've heard.
Yeah.
Through conversations and through Cleo I think it is like a somewhat
Totally.
direct,
I've spent
yeah.
quite a bit of time with them.
Yeah.
At least prior to 2019, sort of. So I'm pretty sure this is the story. But from my understanding, Luke made an email address as a blogger or something and reached out to a bunch of people at Spotify, including Ali Hagendorf, who I think was like head
of
rock at Spotify.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, I'm a blogger or whatever, you should check this band out. And it was them. And it worked. And she heard it.
And so here we are looking on Spotify, and the big thing in the music world, kind of like currently, or where we put a lot of focus, was Spotify playlists.
Totally. Always trying to get on top of Spotify
Yeah,
playlists.
always, like, that was a big thing. And release day comes, and you're looking at what playlist did we get, what playlist did we not get.
Yeah.
In some sense, it's kind of a big deal because you get on one of those playlists and your streams can skyrocket. In some sense, where Queos skyrocketed because they got. Not only did they get on some rock playlists, they got on the biggest rock playlists.
And they were on the cover.
And they were on the cover of the biggest rock playlist. And so that shot their streams up.
Millions.
They crossed 1 million fast.
Very fast.
Like within weeks, I think. And then I didn't check before we did this, but Hometown has got to be over 50 million.
It's got to be over 50 million, yeah.
Yeah.
I would assume so.
Holy smoke. So that launches them. in some sense, they send an email to Ali Hagendorf, and she's like, "I think this is dope. I like this," and she puts it on a bunch of top playlists or on the cover of one, and so their Spotify streams skyrocket.
Fast forward early 2018, they get a booking agent. I don't remember who it was.
Yeah, I've Kreeft.
Adam.
Yeah.
Adam. Yeah. And they're playing Lollapalooza. That was the next big one.
Chicago. Yeah.
Lollapalooza in 2018. That was like the holy shoot.
Yeah, these guys are doing something. Yeah, because it was that summer as well, was it, where they did that American tour?
Yeah, they grinded.
Yeah. But I remember seeing them go to, I think their first show was like Washington. And I was like, because we've heard of other bands going to the States, and especially your first one is like you're playing to empty rooms. Right, but they went to Washington and they were like, like my memory is so foggy, but I remember like seeing like maybe there's like 20, 30 people. I was like, holy crap, like people actually showed up for.
I mean, even 20, 30 people for your first time going to the States is a big deal.
Like in Washington, it's not like you're going to New York and one of these general bars where there's just people milling about. It's like people came to see them.
Yeah, people want to see them.
Exactly. Yeah, and so we're watching all this about them like, holy crap, like these guys like months ago had just opened for us, and then like off they go to the races, and so they get the Spotify playlist, which is a huge spark. But what I observed with them is that I think that there's a lot of people who could just get the Spotify playlist and be like, great, and then like, please people give us more opportunities. But they were able to get people who liked their song. They went, and it seemed like to me that people liked their song. They went to the social media, and they did an amazing job at creating a fan base.
Yeah,
like they used that spark from hometown, and then they've continued to have this like incredible community online, an incredible following that have become fans of them.
It's because not only are they a band, but they've formed a community. Like,
yeah,
I don't think they're still doing stuff under New Rock Mafia, but that's what really like formed that community.
And they were so unique with how they went about things, because like with the first release, they did everything in like all their text on social media was lower caps. All their song titles were lower caps, or no caps,
lowercase, yeah,
or whatever, yeah. And then all of their kind of like what the business world would call branding or whatever, like, but their kind of look or identity was all
very consistent.
Very consistent. It was all disposable film.
Yeah.
Camera shots and everything, and so
Luke doing all the design, from my understanding too. So it's like, he's able to keep it really consistent.
Yeah, and the amazing thing with them now, still currently, is that they're just totally independent. Like they still kind of do their own graphic design for the most part. I
imagine so. I don't see why they would stop. And all their own photos they're posting.
Yeah, and then I guess they probably work with like a booking agent, but they don't have a label.
Booking agent and distribution, from my understanding, but yeah, no record label.
Yeah, there's nobody putting funds into them and chopping them to, like, they have done an amazing job at taking that Spotify spark, creating a community around that, and they've grown that community
totally
through it, and they're phenomenal at it. Like one, they're phenomenal musicians, but I think that there's this other element which we were told all the time by labels. What was the thing that we heard from labels all the time? Is like, you got to have a good social media.
Always have to. Got to get on TikTok.
It became such a stupid tag that we heard from everyone. Is like, and like when labels are looking at you, they don't just look at the music. They look at how good you are at social media, or whatever. And it just got super annoying to just continually hear. But like Cleo, their success is so due to their phenomenal musicians, their phenomenal songwriters. They write phenomenal songs. They also just have a grasp on the whole artistic project.
Yeah, for
sure. From the music videos that they do, from how they release stuff, to how they engage with their following online, to the types of to how they bring the personalities, to how they perform on stage. Like, they just seem to have like a grasp on the whole project. Whereas like a lot of musicians, write songs and then the label comes in heavy with like You should
we're going to
work.
hire this designer, hire these video guys.
Yeah, yeah. You have a lot of people consulting with you on like, okay, like you got this, and then you should do this album art, or you should work with this videographer to make this type of music video, and you should release it X and Y and Z. And Cleo just seems to do everything independently.
Well, they have the
And
skills, and why not just do it exactly how you want it?
it's phenomenal. I just gotta stop and start this video because it's got a 30-minute cap.
Oh God.
But yeah, like I watch him and I'm blown away. And I remember was it when did they post that video of that London show?
I don't remember.
It was sold out. Was it last winter or something or
a few thousand people or something.
oh
in
my
London.
gosh. Like they were playing good
Good
grief.
and everyone
London.
is just going
It
absolutely
was like
nuts.
5,000 people sold out and just like you can't hear Luke singing because everyone's like good grief.
Everyone's just going right off.
Oh my goodness! And then they're going now and selling out European tours. They played Reading Festival last summer. They're playing it's just been phenomenal
It's pretty cool.
to watch them. Yeah, and they have what I think holds a lot of talented musicians back from success now is that they got the whole package. In some sense, I think like it's difficult to find success in music based solely on music nowadays.
For sure.
Yeah.
Really, really hard to just make music. It's
Yeah.
almost nearly impossible.
Yeah, you gotta have the vision for like how you want to basically promote and market your like in business terms we'd say like how you want to develop your brand in some sense and yeah how you're gonna connect to like and they just do it so dang well.
Yeah.
It's really
cool.
It's really cool. Yeah, it makes me really jealous sometimes to see you because they're just doing everything that we ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
They're going all around. They're playing Paris and London and these big festivals in Europe and just hopping the pond all the time and touring the States and playing like big shows in LA and
You know what's funny though? Like just thinking back to what I was saying about success and like, you know, being successful is being able to support yourself and, you know, make a living. I think Luke like just moved out of mom's house, which is rad. Like save your money while you can.
yeah.
And like I think he was just living, from my understanding. I don't know for sure. We haven't stayed too in touch for the last couple of years, but I think he just got his first apartment recently.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. They also generously showed up to our
Toronto show in October.
tiny Toronto show in October, and we're front row.
Got a good catch up.
Yeah, no, they're really good guys. But yeah, that's also one thing because I think like we did decent in the Spotify stream world. Like that was probably our greatest strength in some sense was our stream numbers with the Kents,
With
right?
the Kents for sure.
Yeah, I think like something about her is over 4 mil.
I think it's
I think it's 5 million now. Yeah,
Caroline's up 2 to 3 or something like that.
yeah, and so like compared to our contemporaries as well, like that's one place that we were in the upper percentiles was like our
Coming up,
Spotify
for
success.
sure.
We got some good playlists, and a lot of that's due to our manager Colton. Like before playlist was a big thing, like he was kind of
Really pushing it.
and shuffling us in.
Spent days emailing.
Yeah.
Just trying to get us on playlists.
Yeah,
and
before it became systematized as it is.
sure.
Like now you upload to Spotify and they have a whole system you have to go through, which everybody goes through now. We had a little leg up in that we had somebody in the industry that knew another person in the industry.
For sure.
Which is where a lot of success also comes from. It's
that's
like
why
it's who you know.
It's so wild that Cleopatra's done what they've done because they don't haven't at any point had a huge team.
They've kind of totally skipped like the Canadian industry.
For sure.
In some sense, there's a lot of bands which have become successful because they've done things right in the industry here, where they've worked their tails off and gotten good Toronto shows and developed a good social media and have a good album, and so then a good Toronto Canada label will take them on and then push them to tour and to put some money behind it.
You got opening
and everything, and so you do Canadian festivals and everything. And Cleo with the power of the internet just totally skipped.
it. I can't recall like them doing any big opening tours. Like they've definitely opened for really cool shows.
Yeah, who didn't they do one?
I don't remember who it was with, but maybe one.
I thought they did it for one big name.
Royal Blood.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
They
Royal
did some
Blood.
shows with Royal
But
Blood.
they did the States
Yeah.
and Canada too, right? Or
I don't recall.
yeah, which
Even
is
that
like
was like pretty late. Like, oh yeah, okay. Now that I can picture the poster, it was definitely Royal Blood, but that was
yeah.
still like they were a successful band already.
They were
Like
a successful band already, and a Royal Blood tour would be much bigger than most.
like
what
I
most of our
feel like a
contemporaries
dream
get,
for us was opening for a band bigger than us on a tour.
Yeah.
We never did that. Definitely opening for lots of
yeah.
bigger bands, but we
A goal for us is like, can we get $400 guaranteed a night?
yeah, to
That would be a dream.
Yeah.
To get like, man, we got $400 a night to go on this tour. Like, that pays for our gas every day.
face for gas, and that's about it. And
Yeah.
it's wild. Like one-off shows, we definitely did pretty good, but a dream was to just like be on the grind for 2-3 months, making no money and just opening for a cool band.
Yeah.
Never happened.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the world. So I think with being a successful musician, that's where a lot of misunderstanding comes in. So a lot of people look at for us, a lot of people look at our Spotify streams. It's like, whoa, like you made it. Like,
Yeah.
like they see any stream that's over 1 million, and it's like, whoa, okay, you had a hit or whatever. And it's like at our peak Spotify streams, we were getting like, I don't know, like 2,000 a day in Germany alone or whatever, on Caroline or whatever. We never made more than $1,200 a month off of Spotify and Apple and Amazon and all the streaming that would come through our service. So that $1,200 a month, if you're a solo musician, sounds decent.
That also gets split up
It would get split up 5
ways plus band potentially.
Yeah, it would get
4 ways plus band.
like in that time it would get split up 6 ways, because we would get the 4 of us plus management, and then we do
into our
band fund.
Yeah. So that $1,200 turns into $150 each or something.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so and that was getting like on songs that have
Millions
2 to
of
5
views,
million
yeah.
streams now, right? And so streaming doesn't pay
Which I
great.
think is becoming like a pretty hot topic over the last year in the industry, but no one's doing anything about it. No one's going to do anything about it. I tried to use Tidal for a bit because it pays artists better, but it's like $30 or something like that.
In order to pay people well, people got to pay more for the
pretty
services.
hard.
It's like how all like Netflix and Disney and Amazon Prime, whatever, they're all losing money on streaming right now, and it's like getting to this kind of like that Netflix is trying to pull like you can only use Netflix at your house or whatever, and then
They never got me with that. I'm still on Mom's.
they got me scared with that because they were like, "Is this your home residence or are you on vacation right now?" And I was like, "Oh, I can't use my sister's account anymore." So I didn't use it for like 3 months, and then I was like, and then literally last week I was like, "I'm just gonna try again," and then I got on. I was like, "I'm in." It's like on Netflix again. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely not a way to make a living at all. And I feel like, what a lot of bands do good and what Cleo did good was they used that momentum to do other things.
Yeah.
Right, is really what it comes down to. They use that Spotify momentum to gain followers,
To get shows.
You
can make money at shows, and then if you can somehow get your way, which I think is where the Canadian music industry still has some opportunity for musicians, is radio.
Totally.
Radio and saying that,
dwindling.
that's where our greatest money came from.
For sure.
Like-
Radio, specifically Stingray Music and Sirius XM. Sirius XM was the big one.
Yeah, those were like when we were on them. That's where we were each pulling like
Comfortable amounts of money.
yeah, we
for a
were
bit.
like we each individually were pulling like $1,100 a month for over the span of like 11 months. Like when we were on
Plus
Stingray and Sirius.
making money from shows and
Yeah,
like we could actually make a go out of it at that point.
yeah,
But it's not consistent. Like I was surprised at how much they kept those songs on there, but a lot of artists don't get a year of Sirius XM.
no, and then we went back for our next release and we didn't get the same.
Not
Right, and
close,
so nothing's guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed. Yeah,
Again, I feel like too a lot of that success, like we wrote good songs and they were recorded well and they were approachable songs, but I think a lot of our Sirius and Stingray success comes from knowing people, like Colton knowing people and
Yep.
being able to,
Knowing the right person to email,
yeah,
and then
not coming from the kents@gmail.com, coming from like a third party person,
yeah,
a representative
yeah,
is important.
yeah, yeah, and just knowing like one of the big barriers is knowing who to email.
Yeah,
like now
for sure.
Spotify has systematized everything so that everything just gets channeled through their system. But back in our day,
Yeah.
7 years ago, it was we knew the right guy at Spotify Canada to
Right guy at Sirius, and the right
yeah.
guy at Stingray.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Success in the music industry is absolutely not a meritocracy.
No.
Or it's not based on merit and talent and everything. I would say like in order to have success, you have to be talented. And like because Clio, if they didn't have the talent that they did within their branding and graphic design, like they could have shot up and
Just sunk back down for sure.
yeah, like they took that and were able to elevate it, right? Like they took and invited people into like come on this ride, like this is gonna be an exciting journey.
For sure.
Whereas like a lot of musicians and ourselves in some sense like got the streams and it's like great, like let's try and just keep this going. And in some sense just like having the talent to be able to get the opportunity and capture it.
You can be writing hit songs, but a lot of people won't know about it.
Yeah.
You can be writing the most popular sounding, most catchy songs that would be radio hits, but if you're not marketing them properly, then
yeah. Now that is one. It's interesting because there's been some people in the business world that I'm in now as well, which have basically told me that if you guys had like marketed yourselves better, you would have been successful. And
see, now I'm turning around on what I just said because I feel like we marketed ourselves pretty well.
We marketed ourselves pretty well, and as well, it's not like success in music isn't like success in business. Business is somebody has a need, and so you figure out a way to solve that need, and like they pay you and they get a job done, right? So it's like I'm trying to start this video business. People want to grow their business in order that to do they want to do it with marketing, and video is a very effective way to do that. And so I'm solving their need to grow, and I meet that need.
See, I feel like yeah, this is comparing music to that is like people. There's a need for music. People obviously need music, like they need coffee shops, but it's as if there was 500 coffee shops in one town.
Yeah.
And everyone's fighting to get the most attention.
Yeah.
You know, and
oh yeah, because to work your way on to get somebody to come and see you on a Saturday night, how valuable are your Saturday nights? Like
if we're playing at the Horseshoe, but there's a great band playing at the Rivoli and the Dakota and the Opera House and the Danforth,
Scotiabank Center.
And you have to find a way to get people to come see you.
Not only do you have to get somebody out of their house and not have a movie night that night, you have to convince them over other bands to do that, but then as well to work yourself onto somebody's playlist. Like how much do you have to like a song to put it on your personal playlist and to actually listen to it, right? Like there's this like there's some element where it's like you're not necessarily like overall music does meet a need. But it's not the same thing as like my pipes burst, I'm going to call a plumber.
For sure.
You know, in some sense, it's like there is a lot that you need to do in order to convince somebody to come out on a Saturday night or to add you to their playlist or to, there's just like a big barrier to like, you're trying to break into somebody's personal enjoyment and personal time, which is incredibly valuable to
somehow
to that
something
individual.
about her has done that. If you look at, 60 to 70% of current streams, I'm pretty sure, are people's personal playlists that were added years ago, likely. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That many people. Like, we're still getting tons of streams. We're still increasing by thousands. And
yeah, I think the Kent still has like averages around 30,000 listeners a month or whatever. Yeah. So that song.
that's all personal playlists at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, and that song connected with people because it's not like we then like had a grand marketing campaign around something. We released a music video and then just kept kind of going about our band things, whatever. But that song kind of took on a bit of a life of its own
For sure.
with the community people who quite liked it. So
I've met people like where I live now that know that song.
yeah, I was there've been some really strange ones. So one, it was referenced in that random book that
Yeah.
Warren's mom's friend was reading this. What was that book called?
I don't remember.
It looked like a kind of like romantic novel, whatever. But it was like, but then all of a sudden, Warren's friend's mom was reading this book by a New York author. It was talking about Clara was at a Miami club and dancing and feeling trendy music. This song came on, and something about it by the Kents came on. So Warren's mom was reading, and Warren's mom's friend was reading. I was like, what the heck? Like, there's this. But then. You remember my friend Josh Winkler?
Yeah, of course.
His wife was in Waco, Texas, with her sister at Chip and Joanna Gaines. They had they had the big HGTV show,
Okay.
and they had a big festival at Waco about for home decor stuff or whatever. And she's just walking this big festival fairgrounds or whatever, and then all of a sudden something about her comes on, and she's like, that's my Canadian friend's. That's my husband's Canadian friend's song that's playing. And so she took a video and sent it to me. But yeah, it's had some weird reach.
Yeah. I'm across the country and there's people that, oh, what band are you in? I'm like, oh, we're called Heaps, but we used to be called the Kents. And when I mentioned something about her, they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and then we not only that, we'd have random people from like Poland or from like Croatia or from like all these different. Is Croatia still a country? Yeah. I immediately said that. I was like, no, Czech Republic isn't. No, Czech is.
I don't know.
I don't know, but we would have just a bunch of people reaching out from like around the world or from Brazil or whatever, being like, I love your song, or whatever. And it's like, well, like again, like power of the internet too. You're not just playing to people on Yonge Street or on Hunter Street anymore. You're like you can get all these people around the world, which is also why like people would look at our Spotify streams like, whoa, you're probably pulling people at the shows. We were not pulling people at the shows. We were not, like our top show was like, we sold at the Horseshoe Tavern in Toronto, which
like 400 people there.
400 people, yeah.
They increased capacity. Craig increased capacity for us, and like, I think we sold 425 tickets.
But then outside of that, I don't know if we ever had like a show which we headlined and put on ourselves where we pulled more than 150.
Maybe 150, 200.
Yeah, and then we still go to the East Coast and have trouble pulling 25 people.
Unless we have a sweet local band that all their friends.
Yeah, like so we'd still go around and like we would do well in like Kingston and Ottawa, and that was still like doing well meant like, hey, we got like 60, 90, 120 people out. Yeah. Kind of thing. And so
there was that one in St. Catharines. It was at the end of a tour, and we played at, I think it was called The Warehouse.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And there was like 150, 200 people there. We were not I remember expecting it to be like the worst show of the tour.
Was that the one where the dad screamed at us?
Yeah, the dad screamed at us for not playing Something About Her. That was
we didn't. We didn't play.
People there.
Yeah, we didn't play Something About Her because we had an insecure and troubled relationship with that song, and a dad who was there with his probably 20-year-old daughter.
Yeah, who's a big fan.
Took great exception to us. No, it was she wanted Something About Her. He wanted the stakes.
They both wanted songs
and so 2016. and so they go and lead and get us an encore. It's like, okay, encore. So I think we played like Fleetwood Mac for an encore or something.
We played some randoms.
And then we're like, thank you, have a good night. And all of a sudden the crowd here, no, you have to play the stakes. No, you have to play the stakes.
They like came up to the stage and like they made us feel really bad.
Yeah, and just were screaming at us in front of everyone. And he took 3 out of the 4 of us individually and cussed us out for 5 minutes.
I remember him specifically saying, "Who do you think you are? Fucking Queen?
You're not Queen.
Yeah. I'm not Queen." Like, what? Just because we don't have to play the songs you want. You're making, and I'll never forget that drive home was when I was like, all right, we got to do something about that. Or when we were all like, it's time to make a change. We had some weird insecurity that made us not want to play that song anymore.
Yeah.
And it was at the point where like every show, someone would come up to us before and say like, "Oh, I'm so excited to hear something about her," or if we didn't play it, after would come up to us and say, "Why didn't you play it?"
Yeah.
And honestly, I hate to say this, I've never really admitted this to anyone, but Caitlin, like, maybe we should have just played it.
Just played it.
Just played it.
Just played it.
We should have just played it. And like, I don't know. I feel like things could have been a lot different if we just released our future record under the Kents and kept, like, we had momentum. And
yeah, I think yeah, like,
I think we were like too wrapped up in our egos.
I don't know if it's I would say it's more insecurities in some sense. How I was breaking down, because after I left the band in 2020, like, I was soul crushed. Like, all I wanted was to have success as a musician, as the band,
support your family.
And that's all we wanted. And like, we didn't get it. In my head, like, we failed.
Yeah.
In some sense. And I think we looked up to people in the industry in a certain vein. So, like, who did the music that we wanted to. I think it's kind of like we wrote something about her, and well, you didn't write something about her. You came in after we had recorded that EP, but we wrote those songs that were our most successful songs when we were 17, 18, and we're kind of like new to music in some sense. We didn't have great palettes back then. Like, it's kind of like you're really into like, everybody goes through, like, you know, like, your teenage years, you're really into like Green Day, or we were really into like John Mayer or Jason Mraz, or like, you know, like Bean and Lindsay, the pop stuff we were listening to on radio, which is kind of like our only access back in the day to music. And then we had our minds were open to like, oh, this whole other world of music, which is cool. And then the people we were looking up to and wanted to be like in the industry was like cool. And so I think we got in our heads where it's like, oh, something better is so uncool.
Yeah, it's childish and doesn't align.
And then we made the silly music video for it, which then like we had like a grant with Much Music.
We pitched a fairly serious video, like not a comedic one per se.
And then we made a very silly one, which wasn't like tremendously executed.
They gave us the money, but they refused to play it.
Yeah, like, we had to sign like a stiff contract, being like, you cannot release it until we play it 3 times on our channel. And then, you know, like basically, and then we gave it to them, and they're like, yeah, you guys can just can release it. Release whenever you want, and we'll play it like once at like 11 p.m. at night or something. It was like, ooh, like, that felt like a gut punch. I was like, oh, we did really, you know, like, I think we were just kind of like embarrassed, and like this world we wanted to be successful in so badly. I think we felt like we took a big kind of gut punch from the industry for that song. And sometimes, meanwhile, people were really connecting with it over here.
Just pushed so far away from it.
Yeah, but because we wanted to have success in the industry and that's the road to success we saw. Was like, we go, we push, we get a booking agent, they start booking us shows, getting on tours, we get a label for our next release, and then that will like take care of us in some sense. And something about it, I think, in our heads was antithetical, if that's the right term to use, to that road of success. We saw our road of success as like writing cooler music, having a cooler identity, being like the cooler bands that we wanted to emulate and go forth. And something about it was kind of like what we felt was like the teenage song that we wrote within like we'd really know what we were doing.
Was.
Like, it was,
especially like compared to anything released after and continued to release, it just kind of pushed further and further away. And even in October, for people listening that weren't at our shows, we played that song for the first time in years, like probably since 2017. And it did feel weird. Like, it did feel like it was an outlier compared to everything else we were playing.
There is a feel when you perform songs, and I think if you've ever been to a live show, like, you can feel with certain songs compared to others, or with certain bands compared to others, where songs feel good or they don't. And Something About Her, I think, was produced very well in recorded form. live just didn't feel good.
Doesn't
So
hit.
I think that didn't, because like you're going from like big floor toms in the toned down verse to like the off, to like the offbeat hi hat.
Yeah,
And
kinda
it just kind of
drops
like,
and
yeah, and it just kind of drops. And
sinks.
so I think that fed into it as well. Like if it was a good song that felt really good live,
Totally.
that would be one thing.
Derek did a tremendous job
Oh yeah,
producing that
phenomenal,
song. Yeah.
phenomenal. But yeah, I think a lot of that first EP, since we wrote it, like I was in Chicago, Warren was in Toronto, Freddie was in Kingston. We kind of wrote it through Facebook Messenger.
I think the other thing too with that is like with the first EP, I feel like the goal was do whatever it takes to make this sound good, right?
Yeah,
And add as many layers as you need to make this sound good. I wasn't part of the process, but that's what it seems at least. And I feel like it was the same thing with the second Kent's EP. It was like we were doing whatever we could to make the EP sound good. And I remember particularly after that one, we were like, oh, shoot, like we have to do extra stuff to play these songs, how we do on the EP, and figuring out how to make it sound good live. Where I feel like as we move forward, it was more so really working out songs live and making them sound good as a 4-piece band.
yeah, yeah,
To do it to Something About Her
Yeah.
situation, because that on record just sounds so dang good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so it's yeah. So we had a troubled relationship with that song, but okay. That was a good tangent on going on about our ourselves, and
Insecurities.
we're still processing
Yeah.
it
Definitely.
in some sense, and
Still having some regrets,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. What band do you want to move on to next?
I think that the other like obvious one that I wouldn't say we had a huge relationship with, but we played a couple shows with and definitely came up around the same time as Valley.
Valley's a really interesting one because we started at the exact same point in some sense. I wasn't, neither of us were at the show, but we played a show at Lee's Palace with them, like before our first EP came out, before
they
their
released
first EP
anything.
came out, I think. Yeah. And I think we were opening for them. And so there's like I was in Chicago and there's a fill-in bassist for the
Sandy.
Sandy Murphy, shout out. And basically, like, the Freddie and Warren talk about it as being like, and Nate talk about it being as like the most embarrassing show they've ever played. So that's because
Valley played first and played the same cover.
no, I think Valley played. Yeah, they
No,
did. They
it
did
was
play
opening-
first.
it was-
Yeah.
The show, I did not know you guys at the time, but I know the show was opening for the Mono Whales.
No, that was a different one.
okay,
That was a different one because I played that
You
one.
played that one.
I think maybe it was our kind of headline show, and yeah, Valley played
Valley
before
played
us.
first because they played the same cover that they were playing.
Yeah, we were both wanted to play the Stevie one, Signed, Sealed, Delivered. We both had that cover, and then realized before we were gonna go on, like, crap, we're gonna play the same song, and I think they played it because they went first, and like, we just didn't have enough songs to like it. So I don't think they ended up playing it. I think it just played like a shorter set than they were
The
supposed to.
Kents, yeah, okay.
Yeah. But Valley came on and they had backing tracks and they were so stinking tight. And they just and they brought all their friends and they knocked it out of the park. And then we went on with our 5 songs and just it just flopped. It was not good. So that's where we started with Valley. And so they were always one band where we because we didn't have anything out, they didn't have anything out, and they were clearly like miles above us at that point. So they were always the band that we were kind of looking at that point as like we got to be at that level in some sense. Like that's where they're starting out. We need to get up there. And so they were always a band that we look up to, yet equated ourselves with being at kind of similar points where it's not like they were out doing us in streams. It's not like they were bringing out more
No, I
people
feel
to
like
shows.
over the
They
first
weren't on a
couple
label.
years, we were like where we had what most people would consider more success in terms of streams
and then that kind
tours.
I'm just gonna
Yeah.
kick this camera. That ended up then. Yeah, because then we reconnected with them Was that the summer of 18? Yeah, summer of 18 because it's Post Within Waves.
It was spring of 2018.
Spring of 2018,
because,
yeah.
We did that offset, or not offset.
Yeah, I forget what it's called. Basically, basically it was
showcase.
this showcase which was in Fredericton that year, where all of the universities and colleges in, or maybe just universities in Canada, their like frosh coordinating teams go to this conference, kind of learn how to do frosh events. And so one thing that they do on each night is they pull in 10 bands who all play like 3 songs each, and gives the coordinators of these university orientation groups, gives them bands to kind of choose from to play their frosh. So it was like a great look. And so both us and Valley got that. And it was after we had released our 2 EPs, they had released their 1 EP, and
They
both
still ended up opening for us.
yeah, and it was right before they were going to release their first full length record. And so, because I remember then, like, yeah, and like, the one college that hired both of us maybe made a little mistake in that they paid us to headline and Valley to open
Valley
for
just
us.
put on such a killer show.
And it was right at that point where things really flipped with us, where it was like, it would be arguable. Like, I think if you looked at streams alone, I think we were doing better Spotify streams.
we
And
still
so
were, for
I think that's probably why they gave us the headline spot. And our booking agent at the time probably, I think, negotiated that one likely well to get us that spot. But I remember that night, like, I remember like they were getting their mixes in for their first LP.
Yeah.
Like that night, and then like going the next day to listen to it, and so then, and that was fall of September 2018, and then things kind of took off from there for them in some sense.
Definitely a different approach.
Yeah. So
Patrick, from my understanding, they played like the long game.
They played the long game, and also they did kind of the flip from Cleopatra, where Cleopatra's totally independent. I think Valley signed with Universal, right?
Early on.
Like the biggest label you can sign with in Canada.
Yeah, and I think that was like a while before that Frost show. Like, I'm pretty sure that was like a work in progress, like with Universal funding them and funding this long-term project.
Yeah, because they had a really good EP that they released, and like Swim specifically did really well. Like, I remember hearing Swim and just like being blown away, like loving it or whatever. But yeah, so basically, fall 2018 we play with them, and we know they're with Universal, so we're curious to see how this record's gonna do, and it does really well. It does really well, and but I think there was like a surprising element to it where the song that blew up for them wasn't the song they're expecting, from my perspective.
Okay.
Because on that record, like, they had music videos prepped for, or the songs like Amsterdam, was it? And Push for Yellow, and Park Bench, and one other one.
Never mind. The first one. That record?
No, that was the one after that.
Is there still light in the house, or was that from their EP?
No, that was no. There's still light in the house. I think is a song that blew up that seemed like they weren't expecting it,
right?
Because there was no music video for it. They didn't seem to release it as a single, but then it seemed like after it got a bunch of streams and they put out a live video for it.
Yeah,
it went up, but it seemed like, again, like the Spotify community really latched onto that song,
totally,
and that took off. Which is really interesting because I saw the same thing, I think, happen with the 1975 on this last record, where they released like Part of the Band, and then Happiness, and then Oh Caroline as singles, but then About You has blown up. And I think they weren't playing it live for the start of their tour, and then they started playing it midway through or whatever, just because they weren't expecting it yet. Like, again, like the streaming Spotify community said, we like this song, and like latched on. And it really took off. So I feel like that happened for them. But man, talk about a band as well that, like, in another sense, did everything that we wanted to do. Where then we started seeing them tour America. They they were
Open for Coin was their first big one.
for Coin. They were opening for Young the Giant,
Yeah.
which was like our favorite band, like back in the my Warner
2015,
Freddy's like
2016.
like when we were first like we covered Cough Syrup and put it on your YouTube and everything, and so and then just like then seeing like, oh, okay, they're headlining House of Blues across the the states, and their streams are only going up. And then they released the little EP, I think, with Nevermind, but then it looked like then her last record with like 1999, like
Yeah.
that's their big song
Yeah.
now, I think, like got up to like, I don't know what number it got up to. I feel like it's in the 90 million
Yeah,
or
definitely
something
millions.
like that. They're averaging like 2.1 million listeners a month.
That's insane. And I think they released a record today, actually, as well.
Today.
I think they released
Oh yeah, I seen some singles.
a full-length record today.
Yeah, so they have gone on to be like very successful, I would say.
For sure.
Where it's like they're doing big streams, they're headlining big shows. It's one thing to see people opening for big shows or getting some good festival looks.
Right.
It's another thing
Pull your
when
own
you
audience.
pull your own
Yeah.
audience.
And
Yeah,
it looks like they're playing, 600 to 1,000 people maybe
Yeah.
a night and like selling out.
yeah,
Definitely just in North America, I'm pretty sure.
yeah. I'm a bit out of touch with their tour and whatnot because I don't check my personal Instagram that much, which is where I follow them.
I think it's a lot of North America, which makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it seems like they do very well in the
Very
States,
well in the
which
States, for sure.
which is kind of what you've typically seen in kind of the old world of music. Is it's tough for the Canadian band to cross that border. But there's been a few bands where it's like I would argue Cleo does best in Europe.
Yeah, for sure.
Valley does best in America, and then like I think the next band we have to get to is the Strumbellas, which
America, for sure.
America and Europe. Well, they won gold in Italy.
I think the
So,
big
yeah.
thing is like, at least in that scenario, none of those bands particularly identified with Canada and like identified as, a Canadian band. If you look at the Arkells and the Tragically Hip, they are,
It's a very Canadian sound.
yeah, and they're Canada's bands sort of thing. And
They kind of did things right by the Canadian industry
but at that
standards,
point,
sense, or-
it's really hard to break out of it.
yeah,
Like I remember I went to that Pine Grove show at Levon Helm Studios in upstate New York, and I was standing in line, and some guy heard I was from Canada, and I was chatting with him. No idea who the Arkells was. No idea who the Tragically Hip was. John K. Sampson and Andy Schaaf, for sure.
yeah.
But like these huge Canadian bands outside of Canada,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, which was always like, I remember looking at it as a kid and being cynical towards a band like, even though now they don't have a great name, like a band like, for lack of a better example, like Headley or Mariana's Trench, or, these, like, I was always cynical towards them, like, yeah, and they're getting all this radio play and playing good shows, but you haven't been successful in the States and like whatever
Yeah.
kind of thing. But then getting into the industry, I was like, yeah, that if you can sell arenas in Canada, like good for you.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
good. I was like, I don't give a damn about the States or whatever. Like it's like props for that because
But
it's difficult
Definitely
to.
what's taking these bands to the next level, and I think not identifying as like we're very Canadian and like Canada's our.
Yeah, I think when I look at Valley, I see a very similarly to Cleopatra. Their identity and brand is really on point, and it seems like with the last record that I'm familiar with as well, seems like they really connected with the community like Cleo did. Like Cleo seems to really connect with like again in my speculative silly brain, like I'm seeing like they really seem to really connect with like Cleo seems to connect with like kind of the high school outcast in some sense, right? Or like
Totally.
or like kind of channeling some punk things where it's like I don't fit into my school, I don't fit into like the
And that's
world
where
standards
them
in some
fostering
sense.
that community really was beneficial.
Yeah,
for sure.
and it seems like Valley has really connected with a community as well. And I don't know how to describe the community because they pull on a lot of '90s nostalgia.
I think they connect with people that feel like they connect with 90s culture and 90s fashion and 90s
Yeah.
style and 90s music. And I feel like not necessarily people from the 90s per se, because like That would be a bunch of 30-year-olds at their shows.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's people that
There's kind of like this like millennial and Gen Z trend in some sense, which a lot of the style and fashion and whatnot is channeling the
90s,
like
for
the
sure.
90s, yeah, the 90s look or whatever. And so they got the 90s look, and they got obviously their big song like 9099 is like kind of a perfect nostalgia tune for that. And so I think that they have the big label backing them, which again is one thing, because you also see that you can have a big label backing you, and it just turns out to be a really crummy loan that you have to pay back.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you have to, in this new world, you have to be able to not only perform well at live shows that the label puts you in front of, but you also have to kind of have that online presence and connection that like somebody can like. And I feel it with both Cleo and Valley, where they have such good, they represent themselves so well online and connect with their community so well that that somebody comes and goes, oh, I like these guys. Like I connect with them. Like they have the big label support, and the Cleopatra is independent, but both of them have similarly connected really well with,
Grasped onto
with
a
an
specific
audience.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think Valley definitely saw that trend of 90s culture, 90s fashion, and really grasped onto it well.
Yeah,
sure.
They really grasped onto it well, and I don't think that they did it in like a like they took advantage of the zeitgeist or whatever.
They're doing what they want to do, and it's working.
Yeah. Then and knowing them, like that show at them at the college was awesome. Like we connected with them, and being in Fredericton with them too was like so kind, like so nice. Like we like made really genuine connections with them. Like I'm a big fan of them
people,
just from just from like that one night of hang. I remember like we're going to our vans and Rob being like, "Oh, my heart goes out to you guys." And it was kind of like that feeling of like, "Oh, we'll see you later. Hope to see you so soon." Like it was just
never
like
again,
no, never again, never again. But it was just one of those nights like different bands hangs with different bands goes different types of ways, but they were one of the hangs. Was like, oh, this is so good. Like,
really.
Let's go on a lifelong tour together and like support each other all the way. Is one of those nights in connection. So yeah, kudos to them. They're doing great. Next band I want to talk about is Strumbellas. Yeah,
which we arguably have somewhat of a close connection with.
Yeah, I was. I knew, like, we had, before you had come into the fold, we had one kind of little, like, jam session with Simon and Daryl of the Strumbellas before Spirits came out. And so I know a little bit of their history, where they're a 6-piece band, and they had 2 full-length records that had come out previous to the big one that blew up. Hope, I think it's called. Yeah. And one of them was Juno Award winning or nominated, I think at least. Yeah. No, they won a Juno. Okay. They won a Juno. I think they were best folk band or something. I can't remember if that was for their first or second record, but then so they were having some good Canadian success. They were on Six. They were on Six Shooter Records, which is like a smaller independent label. I think it's like a subsidiary of Universal, but it's like a smaller independent, doesn't have deep pockets, but has tight sports.
Good contacts.
Yeah, so they were getting seemed like they were getting like good festivals and pulling good crowds across Canada. But I remember them talking. I remember them talking to us at the show we played with them near their release about that American tour they did, like the summer before Spirits came out, and how they just wanted to quit because they were playing like. They did like a 6-week American tour, and I think they were saying like they didn't pull anybody to any show. They were playing empty rooms. People. Yeah, like multiple of them had kids, and like they were like, I think ready to throw in the towel after that.
Well, that's
after that tour.
Part of what's so hard about getting wrapped up in Canada alone, right? Like,
oh yeah,
it's really hard to swallow that when
you make it your full-time job in Canada,
yeah,
and then and you're making money here, and now all of a sudden you're going to lose money. And
lose a ton of money, just be embarrassed every night.
Yeah,
feel crappy every night.
Yeah, and then have no you can play shows, but if you're not pulling people to your shows, like you're just going to keep playing empty rooms and like expect all of a sudden you're going to have success or whatever. So they had that and we're about to throw in the towel. But then I remember, so it was that summer of 2015, we had worked with them. And so I was like, oh, these guys are cool. Like I liked them and started following them. So I see in like November of 2015, I think they released Spirits.
Yeah.
Just with like a lyric video. And I was like, oh, cool, I like this. So I added it to my playlist and I was following it. I was like, okay, cool, looks like it's doing pretty well. And then I see pictures of them, a couple of the members or something, like going to LA and being like, hey, like, you know, I was like, oh, this is curious. And then they signed with Glass Note Records, which is a bigger, it's not like Sony or you know, a Capitol or whatever, but it's like
a larger indie label.
Larger indie label. And that's when the floodgates open
for sure
in some sense, where I was like, oh, okay, they're on Jimmy Kimmel. Oh, they're on Seth Meyers. I'm driving through Chicago to school and I hear, here's the Spirits by the Strumbellas. And I'm like, what the,
yeah.
Like, cause the other connection, if you don't know the Strumbellas, like they're from, multiple of their members are from Lindsay, in the Lindsay area. And so I was living in Lindsay at on my summers and whatnot. And that's where we got to know them. Was Lindsay, and all of a sudden I'm in Chicago hearing them on the radio and I'm seeing them on Kimmel and I'm seeing them, they're getting booked for this big festival and this big festival and they're booking this European tour and they're meeting Marcus Mumford and opening for Mumford and Sons and in England and everything, and just seeing that they were just shot out on a roller coaster in some sense, and all of a sudden they're gold in Italy and they're platinum whatever in America, and this song takes on this like huge viral
it was the number one radio song for a while, I'm pretty sure.
It was huge. It was huge. And it's still huge in some sense. Like it was just a few months ago I saw that there was this like
TikTok revival.
Yeah, big TikTok turns. There's like guns in my head and you know, it's like yeah, so it's just like the song is massive. I think it's any musician I know or band I know, that's the biggest song. By far.
Sure. By far, yeah. Because that's a household. I don't know if the Strumbella's probably a household name, but that's a household song for sure. Like everyone knows that song.
Yeah.
Whereas like, you know, Cleopatra and Valley have a target audience. Strumbella's audience is everyone. Like that song, everyone knows that song.
Yeah. Everyone probably can hear that chorus and be like, oh, I've heard that somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's everywhere. So like it was a huge song. So I was like, previous to Spirits, they were slugging it out, kind of independent Canadian route. And then, from my understanding, from what they were telling us, it's like they released Spirits, and then it started to, within the industry, it started to get sent around, and it started to get momentum, like behind the scenes, emails all around these places until, like, their biggest offer was Glass Note Records, which they took. Like the industry saw something and said, this is a great song, got the song. And boom, just radio, boom, late night, boom, you know, like all these things. And so, that was like, if Cleo is like super independent, like Spotify streams, Valley is, before their big release, like, you know, they partnered with Universal and then really captured their audience and are doing great. And then Strumbella's circumstances, like
ready to throw in the towel.
We were just about ready to throw in the towel, and then like have a big song that the world is ready for,
right? In
some sense, and now it's like seems like they could play whatever festival they want for however many years they want, like that.
They're still having pretty big radio songs.
Yeah.
Definitely not as on the same level, but
still good. They're still getting streams. They're still getting radio. They're still able to play shows and whatnot. And so that is a big tune. Yeah, which was like the song blew up, and Quill's song blew up, and then they captured their audience, and then it seems like with the Strumbellas, like the song just became like the big thing. Where it's like everyone knows the song.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think another cool one to mention that is quite a bit different that we kind of know would be James Barker Band.
Yeah.
Because they seem to like what started their success and career was playing live, right? Like
I
it
think
seems like
I
the
think
Boots and Hearts thing.
yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like that definitely kickstarted what they were doing.
Yeah, so from my perspective, again, I grew up Lindsay grew up in Little Britain, Ontario, and James Barker's from Woodville. And so him and I remember we took guitar lessons at the same guitar shop. I only did for like 1 year and then I gave up guitar. So I remember seeing him play like there's a big live concert for the music store, and I remember seeing him play like a Zeppelin tune. I was like, holy crap, like this guy's good. I couldn't even play a chord. And then, so from my perspective, and then I had known and heard that he had, for years, was flying down to Nashville and writing and coming, like grinding and everything. And so then there's this big country music festival. I don't know if it's still going on anymore.
It definitely is.
Yeah, still going on, called Boots and Hearts.
Yeah.
Which gets like a bunch of really big country names and is like a huge deal around here. Yeah. And so they had a competition. I forgot what the competition was called, but basically a bunch of local country musicians would submit like
a video.
Submit a video. So and I remember watching James Barker Band's
in the barn.
Video in the barn. Yeah. And so like one song, like here's us, and so then submitted it. So they got selected to play the Boots and Hearts Festival. I think they only chose one band. Yeah, chose one band out of those submissions, so they got to play Boots and Hearts Festival, which is one thing within itself. But then it seemed like then that gave them the opportunity then to engage with Universal.
Yeah.
And the deal with Universal, I don't think was guaranteed out of it, but they won that showcase, got to play the festival. Then I think Universal was able to get eyes on them and see like this James guy can really write. These guys got something together, whatever, and then signed them. And then now they're kind of like one of the biggest country music acts in Canada.
And even then, like I'm pretty sure like he's charting in the States, and like he has his singles are doing really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So like with the Strumbella, like kind of like major
definitely like a
success.
Slightly smaller audience, but definitely major success in terms of radio.
Yeah.
For what he's doing.
Yeah.
I would say not as big as like I don't know what his biggest song would be. Chills, maybe. Like it had a lot of radio success, but only in that market.
Yeah,
right? Which
like the country music market industry is its own thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's its own thing. Like has all its own radio stations, has all its own festivals, has all its own kind of crowd.
But he's definitely thriving within that.
Yeah, he seems to be doing really, really well.
But the wild thing is like, he's just still grinding. And I remember when like I worked for his sister.
Right. Yep.
At a restaurant she owned, and I remember thinking like, wow, this guy has made it. This guy is doing it. And this was back in 2017 or whatever, but he has gold singles in the States, and Laura's like, yeah, he's still just, like we said, living in a 1-bedroom apartment and making truck payments, and it's not as luxurious as it sounds. Like you really, really have to just continue grinding. You can't, even if you have a hit song, it's still hard. Yeah,
people view musicians and like some like success within music with a large equation to money, because we see the big folks, right? Like have a lot of money. Like Drake has a lot of money. Michael Jackson has a lot of money.
Right.
Like U2 makes a ton of money or whatever. You see that, but. And part of how I explain it to people is you look at how many mouths you have to feed before you can feed your own. A lot of people make money off of the musician before the musician itself makes money.
For sure.
So like for that limited time where we had a booking agent, every show we booked, so say he books us a show with like a $500 guarantee. And say he books us an Ottawa show with a $500 guarantee. He gets 15%.
Off the top.
So 70. What is that? $75.
Let's say $1,000 to make this easy.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah.
$1,000.
So which we would have been stoked about if he booked us $1,000 guaranteed
That
show.
wasn't a one-off, yeah.
We would have been stoked. So yeah, so let's say $1,000 off the top.
He gets 150.
He gets 150.
And then after that, expenses.
So
we
which would
each
it be?
so at points per diems.
Yeah,
So let's say $20 off the top for each of us. So that brings
which we only started doing per diems at the end, and that's because we were going into the bread from all the shows. So like, just make sure we can
feed ourselves. So, okay, let's say no per diem. So $150 off the top for Rob.
Yeah.
And then expenses was next, right?
Yeah, and so that would have looked like something like, generally we tried to use our Civics as much, our Honda Civics as much as we could.
Vehicles, yeah.
But like, so let's say, so there might or might not have been a vehicle rental, because
we got a pretty good deal, like $75 a day or something. So
yeah, so like $75 to rent rent a minivan, and then pay for the gas for that minivan.
$50.
Yeah, and so you're dwindling down. And then when we had, then basically how we worked with it was like, the main expenses were basically
gas and rental.
Yeah, and then like where we went, when we had to stay overnight, we tried to find somewhere free. So like
we rarely paid for a place to stay.
Only when we went to the East Coast, really, and we didn't know people in certain towns. Anywhere in Ontario, we could have stayed with somebody to stay with.
Places to stay.
Yeah. But so like you take all that away, and like, and when we had a manager, we had a really good deal with him where he took what we took, right? Whereas like I know most other managers take 15% off the top, just like the booking agent.
So now after booking agent expenses, we're talking like $700. And then not only do we don't just split that 5 ways with our manager, we also put some of that back into
We'd always try and put 20 to 25% into band fund, because we needed to pay for the next record, or we needed to buy merch, or we needed to, and so but then you can see the more you grow and the more people you add to your team, like, and say we had like a legit manager or whatever, which took that 50%. It's like every show, 30% off is being taken off your booking agent and your manager.
Off the top. Before expenses.
Off the top. So whatever show you book, you're only pulling in 70% of what the top one is. And then out of that 70%, then you have to take away all your travel expenses. So if you get to the point where you're renting a big van, or you're, going across country and you're paying for multiple tanks of gas, and you're having to pay for hotels, or you're having to fly and then like rent gear, so like in Europe or whatever,
totally.
Like all those.
There's also considering expenses of like front of house and a merch person sometimes, and a monitor tech, and
and then once you get into the label world, like the label's gonna take
a large chunk.
A large chunk as well, right? So it's like the more people you work with, the more people just take your percentage down and down and down, which means then like, sure, you can have this success, but then if like 50-60% of your funds are being taken by all these people, then you're left with this. So with those people who get this, like with like like Drake, for instance, he's getting this. Like there's a lot of people which are getting this
for sure
over top of that, right? So you got to get to that big level so that your little percentage like this is like basically like how big can you grow the 10% you're going to get at the end of it or whatever. It's kind of being like a minority owner in a big company,
totally,
as opposed to majority owner of a small company or whatever. Yeah. So
I remember particularly, to give a great example of this. Good for time.
1 second. Okay. Here we go.
We played a show here in Peterborough, and we got a $400 guarantee. And I remember particularly one of the other band members from a different band reaching out to me and being shocked and angry and blown away.
That's right. I forgot about that.
The person booking the show, which was a friend of mine, gave us a $400 guarantee and tried to make me feel bad, saying, "You guys are all going to leave that show with $100, and I'm going to leave that show with $25 or something, or $50 or whatever, or $40, whatever." And I remember at the end of that show, we each made $35 because we had a booking agent. Although the booking agent didn't do a lot of work, that's part of it.
Yeah,
He books us the big shows, so he gets a cut of the small shows.
Yeah.
And then we had to put some into our band fund, and we had to pay our manager, and we had to pay expenses because we were traveling from 4 different places. And what looks like to the outside person, us each making $100 because there's 4 people in the band and it's $400. We each took home $35.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, $35 for not only like, at least, what in a lot of industries would be like a half day of work. You take your whole afternoon and evening to do it or whatever, but also like, all the rehearsal and
we got dinner probably.
Yeah.
20 of those $35. Like,
yeah. Well,
it's just, it's not as easy. And that's where I think Cleopatra's probably doing good, is like they're not paying anyone they don't need to, and they've figured out how to do a lot of it by themselves.
Yeah.
Which is really rad.
Yeah, they have probably the least amount of mouths to feed in terms of, even though they have to still feed, like, they still have to have a booking agent, I think, and
they have a booking agent.
They're buddy doing tour managing and general managing.
Totally. But on the other hand, there's 2 of them.
There's 2 of them. Yeah, totally. So especially when you get to that royalties or that streaming, like, because that's another big thing, right? It's like, okay, so you look at that, however many members you have in your group makes such a big difference. Like, because it's a percentage game where it's like, so if you got that manager and booking agent taking the 30% and that 70% is left, it's a big difference where if there's 3 of you or if there's 6 of you.
Totally.
And how much, if there's 6 of you, you're taking 50%, you're taking half of what a 3-person band would be taking.
Yeah.
I remember feeling that with like one big check that we got for some US royalties, being like, man, if I was a solo musician,
Totally.
it would have been 4 times this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's just what it is. And so, if you if the less people in your group, the more you can make.
Totally.
Because you're just having to split the pot less. There's like one 9-piece band that we used to watch, Busting the Bass. And
right.
like I remember just looking and like, man, how big of a guarantee do you got to get all 9? Because 9 people can't crash on and
house,
not 9 buddies can't crash at like your buddy's college friend's house. Yeah. Like you can't all sleep on the living room floor there, and like. And then like 9 people traveling, you can't just do 2 Civics like we used to do.
We used to really make it work.
Holy smokes, yeah. So no, I like talking about. I find it so interesting to talk about the music industry because I find like if you're outside of it, there's such a huge misunderstanding as to what it is and how success is found and the barriers that exist. Because again, there's a lot of people which have told me in the last few years, like, yeah, if you guys just like did a better job marketing yourselves, like you would have like, and it's almost as if like I have a little insecurity around. It's like if you guys just did a better job, like and figured out how to do it better, you would have gotten it. But like, I think one thing to do to kind of like top this all off is like do a little shout out for the bands that we know that like should have success and haven't had the opportunity to. Hutch number 1 was our favorite guys. They played my wedding.
Yeah, really solid dudes that work really hard.
Yeah, and in some sense, I really respect the success that they've had and that they love what they're doing and they continue to do it.
Yeah, they love playing live.
Yeah, and they'll take on any show, and do it, and they'll go anywhere for no matter the cost or whatever because they just love doing it. Yeah. I think one band that, especially in the first couple of years, that we looked up to was like, if any band's gonna have success, it's gonna be this one. It was Lost Cousins.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like I remember seeing them, and that first time we were touring, having to open for them in Peterborough at the Spill.
I booked that show as well.
Yeah, and then just being like, oh my goodness, like we got so far to go just because they were so good.
They were so good.
They were so good, and they still are so good. But there's just something of that, how good they are just hasn't been able to translate to convince anybody at like a major label or like an online audience or something.
I think they have a label. But I think they're with Cadence.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like they're doing a ton of it.
And that's one big disparity, which again, a lot of people don't understand is like you can see a band and they're so good. They're so stinking good.
Yeah.
Like, they're so good
So
live. Like, Hutch
talented.
and Lost Cousins are so
Yeah.
good live. And they're such a joy to see. And getting that to translate into the digital world is tough. And like, I think I challenge anybody to go to a concert, and like, it's such a different experience than listening to that. Go to any concert, see any local musician at your local bar, and like, it's such a different experience than going to Spotify afterwards and listening to their record.
Totally.
There, right? There's this disparity between the band in real life and the band in the digital world, and it's so difficult it can pose difficult for certain very talented musicians or groups to bridge that gap between like, you're so good live,
Can't
and
just
then-
rely on being a really good band, which sucks. And even their records are so good.
Yeah,
Like that record they came out with most recently was like 4 years ago or whatever, but it was really,
Yeah.
really good.
yeah, yeah,
But it doesn't have streams. It doesn't.
yeah. It's just, and again, it's just like the opportunity just hasn't presented itself in some sense, which is kind of the same for us. Like, we did decent in Spotify streams, but we never toured West Coast Canada. We never toured America. We never toured Europe. We just kept trying to do the grind, the 401 and whatnot. And like, it's a grind, but Hutch, Lost Cousins, Basement Revolver.
For sure.
Yeah.
That was my next
Yeah.
one.
They're good. They're good
Very
folks
good.
there.
Again,
Yeah.
also very good live and recorded. Really
yeah.
good songwriters.
Oh man. Yeah. Baby is such a good stinking tune.
Caitlin and I listen to Knocking a lot.
Yeah. That's
really,
a phenomenal song.
really,
Yeah.
really good song.
Yeah.
That's a favorite for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's phenomenal live
And it
too.
hits, really good
Oh,
live.
yeah.
I remember when we did that little run with them, I kept thinking like, oh, this should be the last song they play. But it's pretty low. It's pretty tame, right? But like in terms of volume.
Yeah.
But my gosh, that's a really, really
Yeah.
good song.
She's a phenomenal performer
Yeah.
with that. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else you can? I know there's like a huge roster of, like you can't name every band that like you see them live and feel like they should have success, and they sadly don't.
Did your camera just die?
Yeah, it did. Alrighty.
The one other
Camera
band I
died,
can
yeah.
think of, Rebel.
Yeah.
We played a lot with them first year, and
Yeah.
a bit in the second year.
It's
of
stinking
the
tight.
band.
Yeah.
Really tight, really good. They're still grinding.
Yep.
They're still getting good opportunities opening for bands in Ottawa and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But where's the I remember one fear that I had. I'm not saying that any of the bands we just named are in this sphere. It's just like a fear that I had with like the life that I wanted, but then the pursuit of music. I was scared of like, because the tough thing, and I really felt it when I left the band too. The tough thing is like, success is always right around the corner. Like, especially if you look at like a Strimbella thing where it's like they're grinding their first 2 records and the 3rd record blows up, right? Or or with Quail, it just takes like one email to, like in some sense. And so like success is always around the corner, and it was really difficult to leave and then recognize that like it can happen for you guys. Like, excuse me, right away. But I was always nervous to just get caught in a space of like, success can always be around the corner.
Right.
And like, I never get my life, the other route that I want to go, I never get it going because like,
Because you're just waiting for that success, waiting to turn.
yeah, because it's always around the corner. So it's like you keep pushing, you keep grinding, you keep pushing, because it just takes one little thing to, like to launch this or whatever, but nothing's ever guaranteed.
Yeah.
Just because you work hard doesn't mean that like it's going to happen for you, unfortunately. But yeah, well, anyways, thanks for chatting,
Yeah, thank you.
Tanner.
It was fun.
Yeah, welcome back from BC. I hope you continue to enjoy all the mountain biking out there.
Yeah. I missed you.
Yeah, I missed you too. Yeah, I missed the. Just checking the time. We got a couple minutes, but I missed the. Oh man, I miss it so much. Just like the touring and the like you're hanging out. Like if you're in a good group, like you're hanging out with, like for us, it's like you're hanging out with your best friends.
I think
like 24/7.
to comment on that is like I've had a bunch of insecurities with making music out west and like finding people around me to make music with, and I just haven't really wanted to find that because of how well I worked with you guys, and like I like spending time with you. I never felt like I was wasting my time, and we just always had a good time.
Yeah.
And it makes it really hard to try to do it with other people.
Yeah. And we were really fortunate as well, because I remember seeing just like, bands that have it together that don't have success. I remember seeing a lot of talented musicians that just didn't have the crew around them to support it. Totally. I remember seeing some lead singers and songwriters like, holy crap, if that guy just had a drummer and a lead guitarist, he'd be like phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's like a story I remember seeing with like a lot of people. It's like, oh, if you just had a couple more people around you, you can have it. And we were fortunate. We're fortunate enough just to like have found each other in the local area that we did. So anyways.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.